right, is everyone here? All right, we're starting. So when we switched over from the old company to the new one, internally we realized our password protection sucks. So Matt has done this before in terms of just general computer security. This is a presentation you've done before?
A little bit different for the general audience.
Is this geared towards corporate or personal or both?
Oh.
Okay, so this will probably scare you, as it should, okay? So this will likely lead into us doing more formal password protection and security across our company. So we're probably going to ask everyone to download LastPass and share passwords that way, as opposed to like communal logins and other things. But this is the start of it. So let's understand what the risks are and everything else, and then we'll go from there. Should be educational and scary. So yeah, Matt, go ahead.
Thanks, guys. Let me move you down here. So grab a seat. When you get comfortable, it's going to be like 30 minutes. If you understand, then 30 minutes. It's up to you. So like Paul said, I've done this talk a couple times. I did it once in like 2016. I did it at my last company, and I'm doing it again. I've changed it every time because this field just keeps changing rapidly, faster than experts can keep up with it. And it becomes increasingly more relevant every time I give this talk. Like every time I give this talk, I'm like, all right, great, everyone knows what they need to know. You should be good to go. Next year, a huge attack happens, and billions and billions get affected. And I don't know if you guys saw the news last night. Capital One's the latest victim. 100 billion people's data has been exposed.
Did you arrange that?
I did not. That's the beauty of this topic. That's the beauty of this topic. It's just going to stay relevant forever. So I can do this talk every year, and it's going to be relevant every year. So I'm getting a lot of ROI on this topic. How do I get this slide?
Mr. Mute?
Okay, cool. So we're going to talk about different hacks, different attacks. We'll even look at the inner workings of some of them. Just a disclaimer, they're totally illegal to perform. You'll see what's going to happen with this Capital One person. I think it's an inside job. They're going to get slammed by the federal government. Don't do it, but there are sandbox environments online. Google even hosts some where you can actually practice this stuff. And if you're interested in becoming a security expert, I highly recommend you toy around and build some attacks to do against yourself. Don't do it against other people.
Don't companies pay you a bounty if you find something?
So Google has, they do bounty hunting programs. There's also, there's tons of third-party people that we should actually use that will audit and try to attack your software when we give them the permission, and then give us a report on how they broke into our stuff so we can go fix it. And a lot of security researchers have policies that once they find these exploits in Apple devices or Microsoft, they report it to them first, and then they make it public after they fix it. That's why you'll hear about these things after, and it'll be like, Apple patched this in version 12.2, and they actually found it like 6 months ago. So they have this like inner policy to let the companies know before they let the public know. So just a bit about my background. When I've been a software engineer forever. I can't even remember as far back, but when I first took computer security courses in college, I loved it. Like I was a math major also, and to see like computer science and software engineering actually blend with mathematics in these crazy ways was just totally like mind-opening to me. So I took this and I co-authored a patent at Dust called, I don't know, it's in all caps. I guess patents titles are in all caps, but messaging system and method utilizing volatile memory. And I co-created the encryption and messaging protocol of the world's most secure messenger based on the Signal protocol, which is highly regarded as one of the most secure messaging apps on the planet. That all sounds really cool, but I'm far from an expert. So you should take that and, you know, you've really got to, do your due diligence to protect yourself. So what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about cryptography, just the basics. We're not going to go into anything crazy, even though that field itself could be a year-long lecture. Going into RSA and AES, those acronyms will make sense to you coming up. Hashing. Diffie-Hellman is the backbone of computer security as we know it. Different hacks and attacks, so this will be the fun stuff, and kind of see how different hacks and attacks work. and some best practices so we can come out of here and go protect ourselves better than we are today. So ironically, I was going to be giving a computer security presentation like a month or two after this date, and this happened to me, of all people. So I woke up one morning, there's no timestamps here, this was that day, it was very early in the morning, and these are the emails that are in my inbox. So my password was reset on eBay, some orders were made, and there was some thread going on between the seller and the buyer. So that's a very comforting batch of emails to get first thing in the morning. So I looked in, and apparently my brother, Vitaly Selecki, is delivering something to Delaware, and he wants this guy to not ship it to the default address, which is mine, but this other address. This guy hacked into my eBay and bought himself a Gucci purse, a PlayStation 4, and a couple other items that I had to spend all morning. And it was actually a battle. Like, as I was removing stuff from the cart, he was adding stuff to the cart. So it was like, while I'm on the phone with eBay customer service. So this was a very fun morning. So that was me in the morning. So how does something like this happen to anybody? And I went to a website called Have I Been Pawned. You can go on it right now and type in your email address, and you'll see a list. This is real. This is my actual email address. And you'll see a list of hacks that your username and password combination have been exposed. And it looks like Spotify was the culprit. And I had a Spotify subscription years ago, and I stupidly used the same password and username as my eBay account, which I made that like 10 years ago. So just bad practice on my part using the same username and password, and it was a weak password. And we'll get into what defines a weak versus a strong password later. So kind of what's the state of affairs going on is viruses and Trojans and just the methods that people are getting them onto your machine are becoming very sophisticated and very hard to defend against. They're doing these things, watching your webcam, stealing your things, theft of billions of dollars from big corporations. Large corporations get hacked thousands of times a day. Capital One just happened or was released yesterday. I think remember the Equifax breach, which was 2 years ago or something like that. Home Depot was one, Target was one, and we'll see a bunch more later because there's some interesting things around that. Every second, 8 new users join the internet, and there's 250,000 new pieces of malware a day, and 30,000 new just infected websites a day. 80% of that coming from small businesses. And then there's these companies that offer hacking services. So people will DDoS a competitor for you. This has happened in the gaming space before, where they'll hire someone to take their competitors down during big volume events. We should hope that our competitors don't do that to us during the holidays. Testbed services, as well as just third-party services to monitor and evaluate your security so you can actually go and make it better. So this was yesterday. I just took a screenshot of this yesterday because this was my log. When I Google News, the first thing on my headline. So it's not going away. It's only getting worse. And this tends to happen a lot because there's this convenience versus privacy debate, and people usually always favor convenience. And I saw this at my last company when we showed our messaging app to a lot of teenagers, and they just weren't fans of like that other people can delete your messages expire after 20 minutes or expire after they're read. A lot of people just like the convenience of sharing their personal lives on social media, or just having a permanent archive of conversations with people, but that's at risk of your privacy. So one example of this is GPS coordinates are usually embedded in photos, and 60% of all dating photos on your Tinders, your Bumbles, have GPS coordinates embedded in those photos. So we just pull that photo down, and there's a 60% chance that the coordinate of that GPS is within 15 meters of where they took it, which is usually at their house. So that's a pretty scary thought too. Also at JibJab, so I was here before, so I knew some of our skeletons in the closet previously, and I see them, they're still in the closet. So almost everyone here shares username and password credentials. I didn't think that many people, but almost every pod or department is sharing credentials with each other, which is fine, because it's good to share accounts and pay for one thing and have multiple people use it. So what's the way it's being done here? So the worst is it's in Confluence, and I found a couple documents. If you don't believe me, I can actually send them to you. Passwords and usernames in Confluence, in plain text. Email exchanges, so that's also plain text. And Slack Exchange is a little better because Slack's end-to-end encrypted, but not great. So we also have a roles and permissions problem here. Almost every, whether it's GitHub, Apple, Play Store, I mean, Gustavo's in there, Sanjay's in, like, these guys don't even work here anymore. And I'm not worried about them maliciously attacking us. I'm worried about them getting hacked and the hackers maliciously attacking. So I'm sure in other systems, there's people who don't work here anymore or contractors who we let in that we haven't pushed out yet. So this is definitely an area for audit for us.
Can I jump in on that?
Sure.
I think, and I don't know if people feel the same, a lot of times I'll see that and want to change it, but then I'm like, oh crap, I don't know if an API is reliant on their username or something, and you break something. So I'd actually push everybody if that when you see it, document it or take a step to find out if it does, and we can create a list, because it will be a process for us to actually make sure not every, like there is a single admin and everyone else has the right level of approvals that they need underneath it and everything else. But I know at least for me, because we've been around for so long, you're always like, oh crap, I don't want to remove Gustavo, because what if there's an API that relies on it, and then payments go down.
And it happened with Storybots. If you guys remember Brad, who used to work here, he had a ton of stuff connected to his name. And when we removed him, like builds started failing. It wasn't on GitHub anymore. It's because he authorized under his name. We should be authorizing under an admin IT account, and that account won't go anywhere, and we can feel free to remove everybody else. So what should we do instead? Well, we'll talk about that. So before we can even talk about hacks and attacks, before we can even talk about any of the cool stuff, you have to understand the backbone of all computer security, and that's cryptography. And this is what actually interested me the most in school, is this is all math behind the scenes and proofs and very smart people figuring this stuff out. I don't know how they figure this stuff out, but they do. And then when you work the proofs out, it just works. It's kind of magic. So let's back up all the way to the Roman Empire here with the Caesar cipher. So what Caesar was, he was a war general, and what he wanted mainly two things when he was relaying messages to troops anywhere on the battlefield. He wanted to send a message secretly, so he has to give it to somebody, and someone has to deliver that message to a commander in the battlefield. So it needs to be secret. Like, what if that message says kill the messenger, right? So that's not going to get to him. And you can't have the message compromised. So you have to have integrity and you have to have secrecy. Those are two common themes we're going to see going forward. But this requires a shared secret between the sender and the receiver. So we both have to, like if me and Dorian want to communicate secretly right now, we both have to establish some sort of key or mechanism to scramble and descramble the text, right? So we have to meet up at some point and establish that and then split and send messages. That's not ideal, as you can imagine, for most communication, and we'll see a better solution of this later. So for example, one cipher can be just increase all the characters by 3. So A becomes D, B becomes E. I think you get the picture here. So the secret message of that actually equals secret. So that's a very simple way to just communicate with people using an easy key cipher. So basically the principles are we want to encode and encrypt the message, we establish a shared secret, or we can use this concept of asymmetric keys, which we'll get into later. And we need to validate integrity to make sure the message wasn't tampered with. So symmetric encryption is basically the Caesar cipher. It's AES. You've probably seen this when you're making passwords on your router. It's one of the ways, it's one of the encryption standards that you can actually use. One of the main things is it's super fast. So this is the way to encrypt and decrypt data, like large sets of data or network traffic, usually what this is used for. So files, Wi-Fi, password, and messaging. The key here is it's the same key. So the algorithm or the key you use to encrypt something is the same exact one you use to decrypt something, kind of like the little example we just gave. So how do we validate things? We use something called a hash function. One of them is SHA-256. It's the standard right now. And it's a signature for your data. So you'll run all of your data through a hashing algorithm, and it spits out a unique signature or a quasi-unique signature, because there's other ways you can get the same hash with different inputs. But the key here is, even if you modify the input very slightly, it produces a radically different hash. So that's the goal here. And you use an MAC attached to a message to authenticate that the message wasn't tampered with. When you get the encrypted message, you just run it through the hash function, and you should get that little thing that they attach to the message. Does that make sense? Cool. So how do we do this? If I want to talk with somebody over the internet, right? So I want to talk with Paul, and we haven't actually met up before. So how do we establish that shared secret without us physically meeting each other? This is where the Diffie-Hellman key exchange comes in, and this alone is why computer security and encryption and modern applications exist. Is these people right here, and they patented it, but they don't make any money off it. And every single internet application uses this. Everyone, including the backbone of the internet, HTTPS, uses this. So this is one of the biggest kind of epochs in computers and computer security right here. It's a method of securely exchanging crypto keys over a public channel. So basically, me and Dorian can talk right now and establish a secret while you won't listen and you won't know what the secret is. Sounds pretty cool. So we're going to dive into this right here. Does this make sense to everyone? Yeah. Got this? All right. Screw that. Let's go to a simple example. So this is pretty much what's happening at a very, 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 very high level. So you start out with a common color of paint. So you go, me and Dorian are going to go, let's use yellow. And then us in secret, we're going to choose two colors that we don't tell each other about. I choose orange, he chooses green. And then we send those colors over the internet. And we only send the mixture of the colors. So we add the orange to the yellow, and he adds the green to the yellow. And we send the mixed colors across the internet. So Paul, who's trying to hack into us, can only see this tan and this blue color. And then we add those secret colors to that mixed color again, and then we both get the brown shared secret. This is a very abstract, high-level view of what's happening. The math is far more complicated. And here's a very elementary example of what's happening. We don't really have to go into this, but modulus division is dividing two numbers and taking the remainder. So 5 mod 2 is 1, because there's 1 left over. I'm not going to even go through this because this is just beyond, but if you're interested in a very simple example, I could forward this over to you. And basically the key here is you can see they're both getting 18 at the end by doing some modulus division, and everything in red is secretive and not actually exchanged. The public stuff is blue. These are the size of the actual numbers that get used. So anyone actually, this is why these things are computationally difficult to decrypt, because the numbers are just so massive. They're prime numbers, and we're using modular exponentiation to actually compute these secrets. So here is how we do stuff without the same key. It's called asymmetrical encryption. And again, this is Bob wants to talk in secret with Alice, or even other people. They've never talked before, they need to decrypt this data, and they don't really want to do a handshake. How do we kind of do this? And the concept here is public and private keys. You might have heard of this term before. Basically what happens is I make a public-private key pair. JibJab has one, public-private key pair on the website. And the public key gets posted somewhere for everybody to use, and the private key stays with me. So when people want to talk to me, they take my public key and encrypt whatever they want to encrypt. It comes to me, and I can decrypt it with the private key. You do the reverse, and anything you encrypt with the private key, you can decrypt with the public key. You might ask, why the hell would anyone want to do that? And the answer for that is message integrity, which we'll get into later. So here's the takeaways here is public to encode, private to decode. And you'll notice the use cases here is HTTPS certificates, but you see messaging is here as well. And the reason I added them to both is because messaging actually uses both. So it uses RSA to exchange shared secret. So how does Bob know Alice sent this? So how do we know that this message came from Bob? Came from Alice. So Bob encrypts the message with the public key and then encrypts it with Alice's private key. So then when Alice gets it, she decrypts that payload with her public key and then decrypts it, Bob decrypts with Alice's public key and then decrypts it with his private key. And that way he gets the message and knows it had to have come from Alice because he got encrypted with a private key. Does that make sense? That was a little quick. So you're basically double encrypting here, with private and publics to get integrity and secrecy. So just an overview before we jump into the hacks and attacks. So you kind of, when we're talking about key exchanges, you know what's going on. So Diffie-Hellman is how to exchange a key over a public channel, and you're usually using AES. Remember, AES is the synchronous one, the symmetrical one, and it's fast. RSA is not as fast. So your public and private key, but you have that freedom to just encrypt anything you want and send it to somebody, and they can decrypt it with their own key, but it's slower. Don't worry about stuff at the bottom. And then SHA is for message integrity, so the hash functions are used a lot for message integrity. Go ahead.
Then also, when you do exchange, so say you pay bills online, have a public key and then you have a private key. So as long as your information is private, so you put your Visa number in there, and it gets to where it needs to go.
So kind of how that works from a very high level is you have your own public and private key, and I don't know, whoever your bank is, call it Chase, has public and private key as well. So your browser, when you want to go to chase.com, it goes to a certificate authority, and that has essentially the public key of Chase, the verified public key that Chase has uploaded. So you go, all right, I'm going to encrypt all my password and my credit card info with Chase's public key. That way, no one in the middle, not your router, not your ISP, can read that stuff. It gets all the way to Chase, and they can decrypt the private key, and they have your public key along with that. They encrypt the information back to you with your public key, and you decrypt it with your private key. That's one way. Another way is you do a handshake, and you go, all right, we can talk to each other. We're going to exchange an AES symmetrical key, and that'll let us be able to communicate faster, so we can encrypt and decrypt faster. That's usually what happens. But the way that handshake is working in modern days, modern times, is using both RSA and AES together. Anyone else before we move on to that?
Yeah, so if there's a website that's not uploading your download data, which you can have that computer.
So you usually get that. Google will warn you and say this is not a trusted website. You can't find actual certificate for this website on any of the trusted certificate authorities. So when Google yells at you, like, take it seriously.
So are you at risk if you're not going to upload or download data from that website?
Don't know what your browser is going to do behind your back. I would just leave. I think Google puts a big red screen and it just says, like, there's a big button that just says leave. There's like a little text that says, all right, I'm going to go anyway. Usually shouldn't, unless it's a website you 100,000% trust. But even then, if it's HTTP, that's all plain text. So if someone's sniffing packets, is what the term is for spying on you. They'll see all of that network traffic in plain text.
Because the website still have.
Yeah, the website might be okay, but there might be someone in the middle, and your ISP certainly logging that traffic, storing it somewhere. So if your ISP gets hacked later, they dig in and go, oh, here's Matt's password for that sketchy ass website you don't know. So Tor, you probably heard of this. This was big like 4 years ago, I think, with I think it was Silk Road. Yeah, Silk Road, and it was all in the news of a lot of hackers and sketchy people using Tor. But Tor itself is not a bad tool. It's actually a really interesting tool, and it's a way of hiding where you want your network traffic to go. So what it does is it finds end servers, relay servers, these are all proxy servers, and it goes, I'm going to do a key exchange with each of you, right? And I'm going to encrypt it that many times like an onion, so there's layers of encryption. So you can see here the levels of encryption for client go into K1 here, and K1 decrypts the first layer and sends it off to K2, K2 decrypts the second layer and sends it off to K3, decrypts it, and then it actually knows where to send it. It's going to Silk Road, I think. But the FBI guy who goes, all right, I know this guy's doing something on Silk Road, I think, but the traffic is so heavily encrypted and getting routed all over the place in here. When it comes out, I don't know like what's coming out over here. So unless you actually control a majority of those nodes, it's almost impossible to detect who is sending that traffic and where it's going. So that's Tor in a nutshell. Very slow. You can imagine this traffic is very slow, but very secure. Again, convenience versus privacy. All right, so let's get into the juicy stuff, the hacks and the attacks and the stuff we want to avoid. So this is the most common attack, I would say, is the man-in-the-middle attack. So let me give you a little briefing on how your cell phone and your computer's, your Wi-Fi works. So this has happened to all of us. We have our cell phone and Wi-Fi turned on because we were at our house. And whenever you're walking around on the street and you're not connected to anybody, your phone is blasting out every single Wi-Fi you've ever talked to, ever. So that Hilton Inn you stayed at 6 years ago, the Dunkin' Donuts you went to, the Starbucks, JibJabs, multiple access points we've had over the years. And saying, hey, Dunkin' Donuts, are you here? Starbucks, are you here? Are you here? Are you here? And eventually someone responds back and goes, hey, here I am. And how do you, if it's a public Wi-Fi that's unencrypted and no password, how do you know it's not me posing as the Dunkin' Donuts router, right? Just sitting on the street corner over here because there's a Starbucks right there, so I'm just going to post 50 feet to the left. And when people walk by and they're asking for the Starbucks router, I'm like, yep, here I am. Let me eat up all your traffic. So that's what your phone does, and this is the man-in-the-middle attack. So the takeaway here is don't connect to routers or access points that don't have passwords, number one. Number two is if you have to, use a VPN. What a VPN is you establish a shared secret with a VPN, and your VPN routes the traffic. So even if someone's listening on that sketchy access point, my little access point I'm going to post up next to Starbucks, I can't read any of that traffic because it's encrypted between you and the VPN. And then the VPN's out of my control. I can't see anything past there. And then it's flowing to Facebook or wherever you want to actually go to. So 2 takeaways here. Don't go on public Wi-Fi's that don't have passwords. If you have to, use a VPN. And pay for a VPN. It's like $1 a month. I mean, we spent $3 on a cup of coffee and $1 a month to pretty much guarantee you won't get attacked. Pretty good deal. So this is pretty cool. So this is called steganography, and this is the art and science of hiding viruses and data within everyday objects. So whether they're pictures, video, music, and the way it works is this. What's that?
That's what I'm afraid of.
You should be.
I got attacked a long time ago because of that.
Should be. So just a little background here on computer data. All data on your machine is stored in bits. A byte is a collection of 8 bits, 0 to 255. Anyone in production is very familiar with that 255 number for their RGBA values. So what happens is if we flip these last 2 significant bits here, it really only modifies the number by at most 3. So it could be 237, 238, or 239 in this example here. And we can store anything with those last 2 bits, especially in really big payloads like high definition images, movies. I mean, you can store crazy amounts of info in a movie just with 2 bits per byte. So basically 1/4 of the entire payload is your virus.
I get dinged sometimes where the virus doesn't come up if I'm looking for a particular column. Some of the time, because sometimes it'll come up and if I can't find it anywhere else, I really need that image. How do I prevent that?
This is almost impossible to prevent. So unfortunately, sometimes you just got to wipe your whole computer clean, start over. And I do that like once every couple of years. I'll just wipe the whole damn thing clean. But that image might be in your Google Drive. It might be in your big box, Dropbox. So that virus is going to stick with that image as long as that image exists. So this is kind of it in action right here. You can see that we're storing the word cat in this steganographic image down here. And this is just 4 pixels. So it's a red pixel, a black pixel, yellow, and a blue pixel. And you can see the red, green, blue values of this. All black, all zeros, red and green, just blue, just red. And you're just flipping the last bits there, and the result is the image looks basically the same, but you're actually storing some data in here now. So I'll ask you, can you guys spot the difference between these 2 pictures? No. Well, the first picture on the left has the whole first chapter of the Bible encoded in its data. So that amount of information can be encoded, and you will never know. So viruses are much smaller than Bible verses. So you should just be careful with what you're downloading. Never know. Well, the image itself won't run, but if you have an executable that you did somehow downloaded, it knows where to find the virus router. And then
or JPEG image where, say you run the text and you see all these numbers, would that be in there?
It could be. Like I said, the reason you want to do this as an attacker, because virus scanners they'll look at that sketchy executable and be like, that's not right. And then they'll also see the virus code in there too, in the executable. Like, nope, this is bad. But if they see a dumb executable that just says, hey, go fetch this data and put it all together and execute it in assembly, the virus scanner goes, all this thing is doing is just batching bytes together. Like, that doesn't seem too bad. And I don't see like a sequence of bytes that represents a virus, because that's usually how virus scanners work, is they look for patterns of bytes on your computer. this virus is this byte sequence, and if it's scrambled in an image like this, it's very hard to
So
find.
if you restate that, say the image, will it still have that code in there?
If the compression format and the exporting method is the exact same, and you haven't touched any of the RGBA values for each pixel, then yeah, if you resave the image, if the application is looking for the old file name, it won't find it. But you still have that virus, one form or another, on your machine. But if you just like compressed it a little bit, all the RGBA values are going to change. You've essentially scrambled the virus. But the chances of anybody knowing through each picture on the machine and doing that are next to zero. So this is actually, and this sounds like, you're gonna be like, Matt, what the fuck is wrong with you? But like, this is like my favorite attack is ransomware. And it's because of the method in which it works. So if you've seen this, I'm sorry, but you probably had a very bad time. So this is what ransomware looks like. And essentially what it is someone attacks your computer, encrypts your whole hard drive, and says, if you want your files back, you have to pay me. And so I'm holding your computer hostage, essentially. I love this attack, but please try not to get attacked this way. So let's make it. Let's define the acceptance criteria here, just like we're building a feature here at JibJab, and then let's see how we might build something like this. So if I wanted to build something like this, it has to work offline. So if I deploy this to you, it's got to work offline. It can't require you to be online. We can't just use AES because that requires some sort of key to be embedded in the files, and then you can find that key and decrypt your files. So we can't just use AES here. We can't just use public-private keys because there's no way to send the private key out to decrypt your files, right? So we can't just use that. And public-private key itself is too slow to encrypt the whole hard drive. Like I talked before, public-private key encryption is very slow. AES is very fast. So it seems like we want to somehow use AES to encrypt all their files, but then like hide that key behind something else so they can't get it. So what we need to do is scan all the files and replace them with encrypted ones. So what we'll do is we'll use a hybrid. And it could get a little in the weeds here, but this is kind of how I envision it should work, and this is actually how it works. I'm just kind of painting a little story here. What we're going to do is we're going to put the public key and a Bitcoin address and the Tor address of the servers. We talked about all that stuff, right? Inside, so they can see this. Then we start encrypting absolutely everything on the machine. So the victim, meaning your computer is going to generate a public and private key pair. Okay, that's all you're doing. I'm now going to encrypt your private key with the server's public key. So the only way you can get your private key back is with my private key that's remote. You have no access to it. Now you're going to generate a key that's going to encrypt all your files for me. So thank you. Thank you for doing all that work for me. So we're going to encrypt every file with that key you just generated. And then we're going to encrypt that key with your own public key. And where's your private key to unlock it? Oh, it's locked behind my public key. You can't even get your private key to unlock that key to unlock your files. So this is what we have. I think we did a good time at a good chance of it. Sorry. We made it pretty visual enough as to what's happening here. So your private key is locked behind my public key. Your files are locked behind this other key. And the key to unlock those files is locked behind your own public key, and the private key to unlock that is locked in up there. So how do you get your stuff back? You're not going to get your stuff back. But how would you get your stuff back? So you would send that payload and money up to the attacker, and they would decrypt it with the server private key and send you back your private key. And you would decrypt your key file with your private key, and then you decrypt all your files with the key you encrypted the files with. Chances of that happening are next to zero. So like I said, if you get that big red box on your desktop, you're in a lot of trouble. That's one of my favorite attacks. I just think it's ironically beautiful in how it works, and that it actually gives a victim a chance to get their files back is kind of magical in a way. So what's that?
Question is that that's all automated, right? So
All
that's
automated.
Like a very scalable way to.
And the very first bullet point was actually the application spawns thousands of threads and just goes out on your network and tries to attack everyone on your network. So it just replicates itself and spreads as far as it can.
That's
Yep. So don't run those EXEs you don't recognize or those DMGs or anything like that that you don't recognize. Yes, it's happening on the Mac too. Mobile phishing. So this is rare, but it does happen. You may have seen this before to sign into the iTunes store when you're inside of an app. So I can write that prompt in our JibJab app and just steal your password from you. So I'll just use the same Apple ID. I'll just say your Apple ID is your JibJab email, which there's a decent chance you probably used your Apple ID as your JibJab email ID. It's not 100%, but there's a good chance I'm going to get a good amount of people here. Again, I'm going for the low-hanging fruit victims here. And you're going to type in your password, and it's going to send it right up to me, and I'm going to be able to go crack in your Apple account, pretty much zero effort. So a way to prevent this from happening is if you ever see this, swipe up or hit the home button. If it still exists after you swipe the app out, like the pop-up on the left, it's real. If it goes away, it's fake. So the one on the right is fake, and if you swiped it up, the prompt would go away. And if it persists, that means it came from Apple and they need it from you. Should. So DDoS, this is another very hard to protect against attack. Is an attacker basically has thousands upon millions of zombie computers, and zombie computers could be any of our machines here. It's just a computer ready to execute attacks on an attacker's behalf, and basically just pounds the server with requests. You can kind of see the diagram there, and we all know what scaling does to pricing and availability. So not a good thing for any company who gets DDoS. Then we have amplified denial of service, essentially the same attack, but you can see the attacker just has a 1 megabyte per second connection, and they're going out to about 10, and those 10 go out to another 10, so you're multiplying by 10 each time, and then all of those just converge onto one machine, and you have 500 gigabit per second throughput into one machine. So if you can't defend against that, you're in a lot of trouble, and you could use these protocols to amplify your requests here on the left, NTP and Monless. Slow LoRa's DOS attack is a little different. So the way kind of requests work, at least on Apache, is if you send a network request to a website, it'll wait. So, sorry, going back a little bit. Usually I have 2 new lines at the end of every request, or a get or a post or a put, and that tells the server that, hey, that's the end of the request, I'll process it. So if one of those new lines is missing, the server can be like, oh, wait, they didn't send me everything yet. Maybe that's just a new line based on arguments, so I'm gonna wait for the rest. Eventually the server will time out, but if you send another signal every n-1 seconds before the timeout, the server just keeps listening and keeps listening and keeps listening. And if you do this from enough areas, you're really not pounding it with a lot of requests. The server's just gonna hang. It's just gonna keep listening to all these thousands of requests and not process anything useful. So this is a slow DOS attack. We call it low and slow. SQL injection. A lot of people laugh this off as like, who does SQL? Who writes code that has SQL injection anymore? And you'll see very, very soon that this is a very real and very modern still approach to attacking people. Basically, it is anywhere you have an input field, putting in SQL code so then you can get back results from the database. Big companies are still getting hit by this. Epic Games, Steam, Cisco, Oracle, a lot of .gov websites, and there's actually this website down here, which is a leaderboard. It's a Hall of Shame leaderboard for every company that gets hit by a SQL injection gets put on that board. And there was like hundreds for 2019, so this attack is still very relevant.
Maybe was set up.
Say that again? Sorry.
Is that because it was set up or created using old software or old things from Windows or whatever? Like the government, or let's say UCLA when they got hit.
I mean, it could, but look at these Epic Games. I mean, they're the biggest gaming company. They're the Fortnite makers. Steam is a huge gaming distributor. Cisco and Oracle are 2 of the biggest tech companies in the world. So these are smart companies with a lot of money to put behind development and security, and they still mess this up. So a blanket, like you're just using old tech or old practices, is not quite the full answer there. There's a lot of methods and modern methods for SQL injection beyond this very trivial example. Cross-site request forgery. So this is, so one of the things of modern internet is like, you go to Facebook and you close the browser, and you reopen the browser, and you type in Facebook and you're logged in, right? You're logged in. If you remember way back when the internet started, you had to like re-log in every time. That's annoying. Again, convenience versus privacy thing. So what someone does is makes a malicious link for you to click on that does things on your behalf. So for example, this hyperlink that says bank.com, do an account transfer, and the link just says view my pictures, right? So you're already logged in to Chase, right? So you're going to go there and execute whatever those query string parameters are, which in old school days, this would actually work. New school, it's a lot harder, but it still happens. The concept of this attack is still the same today, but the method is fairly modern and not this simplistic. It used to be like that. And a lot of websites had a lot of problems with this. Cross-site scripting is similar but a little different. So this is like any forum or anywhere where you input text and someone can read it, something social media, YouTube comments, anything like that. You can actually put scripts into your comments. And it's like, hey, I think this, and then you have a script down there. Your browser's going to run this. It's going to think it's a script that came from the server. It's going to execute the script. So if we're not escaping and validating input and removing these scripts and actually escaping those characters, browsers will run this stuff. And what this one does in particular is it prints your cookie out to the screen. So I can go look at that cookie you just printed out to your forum comment and hijack your session. That's basically what cookies do, more or less. Just give you that ability to stay logged in across browser closures. All right, so we're at the end here. So some best practices for you guys to take away from here. If you're asked by your OS to encrypt your hard drive, I think you should do it. I always do it. Scan for viruses regularly. This isn't super powerful. As you can see, there's a place to definitely hide from these things. So, but doing it rather than not doing it is a good thing. Use the VPN on the public Wi-Fi. Back up your important data regularly because you never know when you have to wipe your whole computer. I've had to do it before because I messed my computer up and because I was attacked, so back it up. Use strong passwords. This is I recommend 16 character minimum, the full character set. We're talking symbols, numbers, characters, special symbols, everything. Use them all. And the reason is this: if you use an all lowercase password that's 8 characters, which a lot of us did years ago, it takes a computer less than like a microsecond to brute force attack your password. So it can do every single combination of lowercase letters for 8 characters in a microsecond. 9 seconds, 9 characters, it becomes like a second. 10 characters becomes like 20 seconds, then 20 minutes, 20 hours, 20 years. Like it grows very steep, non-linear. So the more character used and the wider character set, it's much, much, much harder to brute force attack your password. Don't use the same password twice. I made this mistake. Don't make the same mistake I did, please. Require passcodes to use wireless devices. So pretty self-explanatory. Be very cautious when clicking links. They could redirect you somewhere. They can do anything. Just be very careful when clicking links. Be cautious when logging in. Check the URL. There's a lot of phishing websites out there. The fake Facebook.com. You log in and you're not brought anywhere. Or they'll even man in the middle of you to real Facebook. They just stole your password in the process. Always use HTTPS. So Matt was talking about before. When you see that big red sign on Google Chrome, believe it. Double check that extension of the attachment before you downloaded. If it says .mp4.exe, you can swindle. Don't try to listen to that song. And the number one thing I recommend is use two-factor auth. Since I put two-factor auth on my major critical accounts, like my main email, my LastPass account, like the critical points of breaking into my life, I have not been hacked or even, like, hackers won't even attempt. If hackers are looking for the low-hanging people they could easily attack. Once they see two-factor auth, they usually just get out because there's almost no way. And by two-factor auth, I don't mean like send a text message to your phone. I mean get like Google Authenticator or another authenticator app on your phone. So thank you, and some takeaways: go change your passwords, get Google Authenticator. Don't be the low-hanging fruit. If it's too good to be true, it is. So thank you guys for your time. Appreciate it.
Send like a list of these practices, things that we should gather down.
Send it out, sure.
Yeah.
I probably have at least 100 passwords
everywhere.
Yeah.
For the last 20 years. And what I've done, especially for the home computer, because I don't remember everything, 'cause I used to have things the same, but then recently I've changed it to so many different passwords. I'm not gonna remember everything. I have like a text box somewhere. I have to go back. No, but I don't remember shit.
We just talked about the plain text.
I know, but I don't remember anything. Because if I had CPS, I don't remember my password that was just named. I gotta put it somewhere where I can remember. But I'm not a computer, and I'm not gonna remember it. And if I'm trying to get back into whatever website, like UCLA, I'm not gonna remember if I had to change it so many damn times. So I have to put it somewhere. What do you suggest?
I recommend LastPass or OnePass. They're applications that store your passwords encrypted, and it gives you the quality of life that when you actually go back to UCLA.com, it'll auto-encrypt those passwords for you.
Would it be for your phone?
Yep, I have it on my phone. I have it, and I highly recommend this. So the way LastPass works is you have a master password, which is used to get into LastPass to view your password vault. And your passwords are encrypted with that master password. So make your master password, like my master password is like 30 characters long, and it's basically a sentence with symbols in there. So for example, like follow the yellow brick road can be your password with exclamation points and at symbols in there, so you can remember it, and you kind of remember the pattern of like the O and follow is a 0, and one of the L's is an exclamation point. So it's easier to remember, and it's very long, it's very hard to crack. And you also put two-factor auth behind it. So anyone who wants to get into your LastPass vault not only needs that really complicated password, they also need your phone that has the two-factor auth. So LastPass or OnePass, whatever, they're both good. Very strong master password, and put it behind two-factor auth, such as Google Authenticator. Google Authenticator looks like this. It's actually right on my home screen here, and you have different codes for all of your websites here.
They're gonna expire.
They're going to expire in a second. So these expire like every 5-10 seconds. And this is how, like my Gmail's behind this, my Amazon's behind this, Coinbase, Robinhood, all the critical stuff is behind this. So.
Your last pass that log you out.
What's that?
You said your last pass that log you out.
Yeah, I mean, that's good practice. Again, it's convenience, try something. So it logs me out, I think, every 30 days, no matter what. Pretty good on that. It sucks every time I get it. I'm like, oh, I gotta enter my authenticator again. But like, I always think about those first couple slides I showed you that one morning, like fighting with email morning, and I'm like, anything to prevent that, sure, I'll be inconvenienced for 2 seconds every 30 days. I'll deal with it. And I'm telling you, once I've added two-factor auth and resetting my password, I haven't even hit touch since. No one's even attempted to reset my password. Huge wins. Back off.
Promo code. That's what it's all about.
I recommend paying for something. The free ones are tough. Thinking, what are they doing to stay alive? Like VPNs are expensive. You're essentially purchasing servers on AWS or wherever, and you're routing everyone's traffic for you, doing encryption. So that's expensive to host. So you gotta imagine like someone giving you that service for free. How are they saying nothing running, right? They might be selling your data behind the scenes. They might just close down or get acquired, like who knows. So I just recommend, I don't really have one in particular, but I do recommend paying for it. So you're gonna find it for $1 a month, $2 a month. Or just don't go on public Wi-Fi. You don't really need one. But if you're gonna do sketchy stuff like touring or torrenting or whatever, don't do it at work. I remember someone was torrenting at JibJab like years ago. I remember that. I'm like, you gotta be out of your mind. How can you even do that? They don't use VPNs, so VPNs shield you from your ISP, Verizon. What is that here? Who's the cable company? Spectrum, right? So like they can't reach your internet traffic. It's like no one can. So if you're ever in a situation where you want your traffic encrypted, that's up to you. You do it for good or for bad. Use VPN.
Why does ADP change my flipping password like every 4 or 6?
I know.
It's so stupid. No one else asked me to change my password.
Well, State Farm does it too. every 6 months they.
Yeah, they're probably on the same system. Like,
It's an older defense mechanism, but it's still good
is
practice.
it?
Yeah.
I mean, I just changed one character.
Yeah.
I get many like a 12 random during the day.
People use LastPass to generate a new, it'll generate you a nice 20 character,
Yeah, but it's like,
super complicated one.
it's extra work, and I don't know if it actually helps that much. Considering I'm already using, like, I feel like you can only hurt people if you're not using LastPass, you know? Then you're just gonna make a weaker password every time.
It prevents, so the original thing behind that is I've had your password for a long time, and I've told you.
Okay.
And now I'm just gonna stop getting access to your account, right? You know, like that's that original defense mechanism.
That's what it's for. Okay, if they already have it.
Right, because a lot of people aren't gonna tell you like, oh, I got your password. Like, I'm just gonna like keep it to myself and check in on you every once in a while. And, you know, maybe slip some money my way if you're not looking. Check out what your pay stubs are. Like, all right, you got money.
If
I'll
they don't
now
actually
attack
check
you.
anything,
Right.
okay, that makes sense.
So
But I do hate it.
that's
Especially the way they do it. They don't email me. It's like when I try to log in, it goes, "This is your password now." I'm like, if I'm trying to log in, I'm trying to do something. Like, this is not the best time.
that's why they do it. Someone might have. I mean, you have a lot of sensitive info there. There's social security's there.
No, I'm already on all of these places, right? Nothing in there is sensitive.
That's, I mean, sure.
But
But
if you have like on Amazon store,
What if they
decide to straight into Amazon?
they go in there and change your routing headers.
Oh, yeah, I mean, they can,
If I
right?
go in there, now all your paychecks are routed to me. It might take you like 2 or 3 pages to
No,
know.
it won't be that long.
Who knows?
It'll be one. I'll see there's nothing there.
No, I got the money. I spent it. I'm good. You know, they're gonna come after me, but I'm spent it. I'm out. Then you're gonna go through a hassle to get that money
They
back.
should say the emails.
Sure. But maybe you didn't look. Maybe it goes to your spam. Who knows? So much stuff.
It's fine. They're just trying to cover their ass.
They go ADP. I don't know if you go ADP, but I can't wait to open this. Read it. Like ever. No one's ever excited to open up an ADP.
No, they're always so dumb. Just, a lot of times they're wrong. They're like,
There you go.
It's
See, you're
like,
ready.
it's not the right email.
Subliminally ignoring.
Yeah.
But the ADP notice is like,
What
you've got,
about
it's like
the
payday
thumbprint,
for
like,
those responses.
Yeah, but sometimes they'll email
So
like, oh,
my-
your enrollment window's
There's been a bunch
okay.
of research papers that thumbprints are actually user IDs, not passwords. So like your thumbprint defines who you are. It's not a secret. Right? Like I can get your thumbprint.
Yeah, check your
You
finger.
can't change it. So like password, this is part of the 2-factor auth. Yeah, the thumbprint and Face ID is good for just getting into your phone. It's very convenient, but you're at risk. Right? Face ID is much harder to tamper with than thumbprint. But I agree with, and a lot of experts agree with, that your thumbprint is actually your username, not your password. So you should have.
I've been seeing it in like banking or like other apps.
Yeah, you just have to.
Yeah.
But that's really just on your phone. Like if I try to log into your account on my phone, it's not going to ask for your thumbprint. It's going to ask for your password and hopefully an authentication code that you've added to your account. Then from then on, I'll be able to turn on Face ID or thumbprint ID on my phone, and I'll have to supply it another set of thumbprints. Like that thumbprint should be just for your phone.
Okay.
So, but in general, I think thumbprints and faces are usernames, not passwords. They're not secrets. Passwords
Yeah.
are secrets.
That makes sense. It's literally public.
Yeah, and there's public info. Theoretically, I could print,
So-
Yeah.
I could print Seth's face onto on one of these heads we have, that head over there, and maybe trick Face ID onto it. Or deep face or a thing now, right? So it's becoming more and more accessible to fake things, especially biological features.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I use Face ID on my phone just because it's convenient.
Yeah.
Half the time it doesn't even work when I have sunglasses on, so it's not even that convenient, honestly.
It's not like the thumb's better, but it's less.
Thumb's better, but again, I think some people argue this. I think it's a username, not a tag. Any other questions, guys? Good question.
We would list those other, the last pass.
Yeah, I mean, what we're gonna do is get like a one pass eventually for the company. Make little sections, so like finance can share all their stuff here, production can share all their stuff here, tech can share all their stuff there, and there's no more sharing stuff
Yeah,
on
we can see
Slack.
how where all the accounts are.
Right, we'll add them all in there, they're pretty safe in there. For your own personal stuff, 1Password, I use LastPass personally, but I think they're both equally as strong.
What's the longevity of those?
In terms of,
Just those companies.
It's been pretty good. LastPass has been around for a
they've
bit.
been around for a while and they keep getting funding. I don't foresee them going anywhere anytime soon.
They make money from companies, like what we want to do. Corporate accounts.
They're probably a buyout. So,
Like 1Pass will probably buy LastPass, if I had to guess.
Microsoft will buy one.
Right.
Oh, no.
They buy GitHub.
But the tech itself is pretty good. Like they store your passwords pretty well. There's a lot of algorithms and mechanisms to store passwords securely that I didn't go into. Salting, hashing, using your master password as part of this.
I
Part
guess
of that.
technically Apple does it too, right? Or you,
They have the
they
keychain.
have their, yeah.
Apple has a keychain. Like Chrome has passwords, stuff on it. Google's pretty smart. I would trust them. I would trust Apple, LastPass, 1Pass. So whatever you want to use. LastPass is convenient because if you want to log into apps, LastPass can do that.